Welcome
How
to
long
my
have you been
studio,
working?
guys. I'm here tonight with Jose Anwar, and Jose writes this book that I've been. If you're on Substack, you've heard me talking about this especially since I discovered that Jose was already on Substack. He writes a book called The 30-Day Man, and The 30-Day Man is as far as I'm concerned, it's the best thing I've read this year. So, and I've read a lot of stuff this year. So, when you get a chance, you gotta check out Jose's book. But before you do that, you gotta listen to Jose. We're gonna meet Jose. He's right here. Well, he's not right here. He's in Malaysia, right? So
That's
I'm
right.
right here in Malaysia. I love the internet. It's fantastic for this. It's so cool. How you doing, Jose?
Hey there, James, and hello to all the audience out there, the viewers. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so happy to have you. So happy to have you. So
Thanks.
the 30-Day Man. This is this. I ran across you on Reddit, and I read
That's right.
the premise. Tell the people about the basic premise of the book, because that
Okay.
hooked me, and I had to buy it. I had to buy it as soon as I understood what it was all about. I had to get a copy and read it.
Sure. I'll tell you the gist of the book. Okay? This novel tells of a man who is actually inflicted and subsequently diagnosed with this degenerative disease, and he was given 5 years to live, 5 years or so to live. So when he's in his deep despair, he's offered longevity by this shadowy organization who claims to conduct a longitudinal study. So in this study, in this study that is done by the organization, every year he would wake up for about 1 month, and the remaining 11 months, he would be in cryosleep. So when he's in cryosleep, every cell in his body will be paused, which means that whatever that's killing him will also be paused. So it basically postpones or delays his impending death. So this sleep stasis allows him to live an unnaturally long life. He gets to witness his children growing up, having more time with his friends and family. So this is the central conceit of the novel. But it came with a price. If it isn't a life that like as we know it, you see, it's a half life. You live life in fragments. Yes, he gets to see his children grow up. He gets to be with his friends and family, see them grow old. But it's all in fragments. So the question now is it worth it? So this novel takes the reader along with the protagonist over a period of about 300 years. So in the early parts of the novel, it is about him navigating his way with his families and friends, seeing them age and die while he remains young. So in the middle part of the book, you see him a bit adrift. He was alone and alienated, uh, and seeing the future without any social anchor. So that's the second half of the book. The middle part, I would say. The final part of the book is when he's like way ahead in the future, and it is more philosophical when he debates with sentient non-humans on the topic of consciousness and what it means to be alive and all those philosophical musings. So basically, that's the gist of my novel.
I see it and I've read it. So just full for everybody out there, I've read this book. And in fact, I read it on Kindle, and then I forced Jose to make me a paperback because I want to be able to sit on my porch this summer and read this book properly, because I'm not a fan of reading on a screen. I'm dying to get to this. Too damn cold on my porch yet, though. It's just too cold. But another week or two, maybe we'll get there. Okay, but I want to talk because it's almost like three separate books, although it definitely is a single novel, but it's almost like three separate books. There's three separate, very specific parts to the book that cover different things, and they're interesting for different reasons. But we're gonna cover them one at a time. But the first one is the one that I absolutely adore, not just because it's kind of cool and it's kind of the most directly relatable for most people. It's that, okay, I'm going to die. I'm not going to see my kids graduate. I'm not going to see my daughter get married. I'm not going to see all of my grandkids. Oh my God, this is horrible. And then somebody offers you the Faustian bargain.
That's right.
And here you can see all that, but you aren't You're like the visiting uncle every month, every year. You come in for a month and you visit for a little while and then you're gone. And you're no longer a direct part of their lives. And is that trade-off worth it? That alone It's a book in and of itself. As far as I'm concerned, you could have just written that and written that and published that, and that would have been worth reading. Just that little bit. What you've done is something more extraordinary. It's much more. We're going to get into that, but the one thing I loved about your writing, and it really hits home in that first section, you do something that Substack loves. You write short fiction, but you write it inside a larger space. It's amazing. Your book is a series of vignettes of this man's life over this first part of the novel, where he keeps coming back to his life and it's moved on without him, and he has to catch up, and he has to. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And for all of you out there, Substackers, who are always talking to me about this short fiction stuff that I can't do, Jose can do it, and he does it in such a way that it's all stitched together beautifully. So there's both there. There's a long novel, but you can also read it in little bits, and it's got that same sort of cadence, and the cadence changes through the book. But in that first part, it's definitely a series of vignettes, and it's fascinating what happens to this guy's mind and his psyche and his soul as this strange life that he's leading changes. Then you take it into a much different place, much more sci-fi. It becomes, in the middle portion of the book, it becomes sort of almost a traditional sci-fi book. There's a war, there's a whole sort of post-apocalyptic thing that happens. Tell the people about that, because that part has a whole different appeal from the initial part. The initial part is a very thoughtful, almost slow burn kind of book, whereas the middle part is kind of like, ooh, there's a whole thing going on here. We got guns and all kinds of stuff going on.
That's right. Okay, if you can step back and let me share with you the history behind how I came up with the book and how I became.
Absolutely. Don't let me get ahead of you.
It started off with, funnily enough, it started off with me actually watching Austin Powers, one of the movies, but I don't remember which one. You know, there's this one where Dr. Evil went into cryogenics and he slept for like 30, 40 years, and he woke up in the 90s, I think, from the 60s kind of thing.
Yep.
So this has been a classic sci-fi trope. You freeze yourself and wake up many, many years later, or decades or centuries later. And then it got me thinking, like, what if instead of sleeping for a very long time, and then you get to wake up, you actually get to wake up periodically to actually see how the world evolved over centuries, instead of being shocked by the drastic changes, so when you wake up like 100 years later, for example. So I tried to recall whether there's any popular literature depicting this, but I couldn't find any. There's a lot of things where you get frozen for like 30, 40, 100, 1,000 years. There's a lot of stories there, but not on a periodic basis. So then I wanted to write just a short story for my kids and for my friends and family to read about. But then it developed into a full-blown novel. You're right. Initially, when I wrote the book, my interest is, it's an acronym that I came up with, IDEA, IDEA. I like stories about identity, about existentialism, about alienation, and about duty for family, duty to society. So this is the theme that I always fall back into. Sci-fi or any other, that's just a backdrop or just a setting for me to actually push forward these four themes. So like we said, the first book is more personal, where you talk about family, talk about alienation in the family. The protagonist actually is alienated. There's this scarcity of time for him when he's given this basically death sentence. There's two choices: either you live up the 5 years every day, every day, every day with your kids and your family members, knowing at the back of your head that you're not going to be alive to see them grow up and get married and have children, or suddenly there's this Faustian, like you said, this Faustian offering when you can get to live a very long life that comes with a really huge price. I wanted to stop the short story in the first part, like you mentioned, the more personal part, before going to this adventure. So I just wanted to stop there. But when I showed it to my eldest, she's 22, when she read the book, said, "Oh, why don't you move forward? Why can't this guy move forward? Why don't he move forward and
See what
see the
happens.
world 50 years later? what was
I,
going to
I
happen
want to
20
shake her
years
hand
later.
because I'm glad she made you do that.
Yeah, and that's
I
okay.
really am.
Let's try it again. Yeah, so that's why I ventured into the middle part, where it's a little bit actiony, a little bit
Yep.
sci-fi,
Yep.
and finally the third part is something that I always enjoyed, especially when I turned 40. I think there's a lot of philosophical musings because I read a lot about. I'm very interested in the ideas of consciousness and conscience, the block universe theory, and all those things. So it's kind of philosophical. And in the final part of the book, I was greatly influenced by this philosopher called Stephen Cave. He has this great book called Immortality. I think it was published 15 years ago, maybe 2013. The book is
Sorry,
called
say the name. Say
Immortality.
the name again. I didn't catch the name.
Stephen Cave. Stephen Cave. CAVE. Stephen Cave.
Okay.
The book is called Immortality.
Okay.
So this book says that the entire human achievements that we have is premised on human fear of death. So he has this theory, this theory where we have four paths towards immortality, and I can explain this further, but it's kind of detailed. But basically, it mentions people wanting to live forever
Sure.
through different means, through life extension, for example, like nowadays where you can go for stem cell, nanotechnology, cellular repairs. Uh, that's one way of being immortal. Secondly, is resurrection, where okay, for life extension, the first part, this is where uh, the cryogenics come into play.
Yeah.
You go yourself and cry asleep, and then you can get your life extended. So that's the first path to immortality. The second part is on resurrection. In the religious point of view, resurrection is where, like in certain religions, where your body get reassembled, where you face God in the day of judgment. But in scientific terms nowadays, resurrection can be in the form of uploading your consciousness into the clouds or reanimating yourself in robotic bodies. So I address these issues in the third part, in the final third of my book. So I cobble these things together into one book. But like you
And
say, these are actually three distinct
it
themes,
is, and
three
it's
distinct parts.
beautiful in its sort of progression. And there really are three books. You could easily you could put a bookmark in at the end of each section and walk away and pick it up a year later and feel like you were reading another book,
That's
or you
right.
could read the whole thing. It's kind of I personally love the whole thing, but
Yeah.
for those, I know there are a lot of people who don't have a lot of time, and they have, so it's the kind of book that you could take on a weekend vacation, and you could read the first part, and then you could put it away for a little while, and you could pick it up another time and read the next part. So
Yeah.
there is that. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because you sort of brought it up, was the idea of immortality in science fiction, particularly. It's a wonderful trope, and it gets used all the time. I used Buck Rogers moving, in the
That's
original
right. I read that book.
tales. He had a cryo sleep, and he wakes up in 2025. I've repurposed that. I've done it a whole different way, but the concept is still there. He still wakes up in what appears to be the future for him, and what that means to him, and how that all works. Now, in my case, I'm not writing, what I would consider your sci-fi opus here. I'm not writing a big book. I'm writing a little short adventure. But that immortality, that waking up in the future thing, is really appealing to a lot of people. But when you really think about it, it might not be all that much fun to actually wake up in the future and have to deal with that. There's a lot that could go wrong there. The one thing that I wanted to get to before I forget, when you were talking about all this, all I could think of was how much there's a Canadian author by the name of Robert J. Sawyer who writes amazing science fiction. And he's my favorite, aside from the man on the screen right now. He's my favorite living science fiction author. And he's a fellow Canadian, so I always try to talk him up because I think he's great. But this is what he does, is he takes concepts that are sort of sci-fi tropey, and he says, okay, everybody's written this 1,000 different ways. I'm going to find a new in, and I'm going to go at it a whole different way that nobody else has ever done. And that, to me, is what you've done here. You're talking about how you looked for people who had done the sort of short jump cryo sleep kind of thing. I've never heard of it. I've been reading science fiction since I was 6, and I've never heard of anything remotely like it. Everybody who goes to cryo sleep always wakes up 500 years later or 30 years.
Right.
what, and then they never go back in. There's never sort of that, like do it and then next, and then nobody does that. It's never been done. So good on you for doing that.
Thanks.
Next question, and it might be obvious to somebody. I'm gonna say English is not your first language.
No, it's not.
Okay. Now I know for a little fact that nobody out there knows except me that you did some schooling remotely in Canada, as I understand it. I didn't know that when I bought the book. I had no idea about it. I think that's a wonderful thing. And you were raving about some of your team. But what's it like trying to write a book in a language that's not your native language? What's the process there? How do you approach that?
Okay, for the first 18 years of my life, the language in my head is my first language, which is Bahasa Malaysia. That's the first 18 years of my life. So the next 30, I'm 52. So the next 40 years of my life, the language of my head is a combination of English and Bahasa Malaysia. So I studied overseas, so it transformed gradually. But nowadays, I think when it comes to complex issues or abstract ideas, my thinking will be in English now.
Okay.
Because the vocabulary in English, you can express yourself better in English because there are more words to describe certain things.
Yeah, we're really good at making up words.
Yeah.
We're really
I'm
good.
not disrespecting my own language, but yeah. So nowadays, I think in both languages, and I'm more comfortable writing in English than in my first language. And the business language in Malaysia is actually English too. So just for the information of the viewers, I was in the corporate world for about 30 years before I retired, semi-retired last year for 25 years. So for the 25 years of my time in corporate, the medium is English. So I'm pretty comfortable speaking and writing in English.
I lived in the Middle East for 3 years, and same thing. But the sort of the common language is English. If you go in Dubai, every sign is at least in Arabic and English. At very least, sometimes it's in Arabic, English, and 15 other languages. But at the very least, pretty much every sign is going to be in English and Arabic. And where I'm assuming probably where you are for signage is probably fairly similar. There's often local language plus English has sort of become mainly because of the internet, I think, more than anything. It's the universal language of, as you say, business. I'm fascinated by the idea that you think in both and that you write in English and that you're more comfortable writing in English. What I can tell you is that you might be more comfortable writing in English, but boy, do you ever write a Malaysian kitchen well. I enjoyed the hell out of your Malaysian kitchen. Anybody who's ever been a cook with a mom who cooks or a wife who cooks or somebody who is familiar with a cozy environment that involves food will feel right at home in Jose's first section of his first book. I honestly, I was like, man, I wish I'd grown up with all this spice. Great.
I love cooking. That's it's my hobby. I cook for my family, so
okay, it shows. It honestly shows, and there's no question that you know your way around the kitchen based on your writing. 100%. My growing up, my mom did cook, but she was more of a baker. She was a better baker than she was a cook. So I have the same in a different way than what you describe in your book. I have those same memories of baking as sort of love, as food as love. I really do. It's a whole washed up together kind of memory. So when I'm reading your books, I'm like, oh my God, this guy the cooking scenes are phenomenal. I had such a good time with that. And again, for the Substackers who love the short fiction, those parts you're just going to eat them up. They're fantastic. They're really good.
I hope so.
The next question, though, we talked a little bit about writing process, and I'm also fascinated by the fact that you're self-publishing a book in Malaysia, which, let's face it, is not a massive book-selling market in English. I'm guessing. It's not. You're not. It's not a huge market in terms of that. So you're marketing to North America and Europe in terms of English-speaking readers. What's it like trying to navigate all that from another country? Like I'm doing it in Canada. It's a pain in the butt, but I can't imagine what it must be like to have to deal with that from another country on top of that. What's going on with all that? What are you trying to do with it?
when I started writing, I did think ahead. It was more out of passion. It was more of like I have this idea and I'd like to write it.
The
I
trap
never
we
started
all get
writing.
into. We all
Yeah,
get trapped by that. We love to write and
but
we don't think ahead. And next thing you know, oh God, I'm a marketing guru. When did this
that's
happen?
true. I didn't think I would even want to even publish it. So, but when I showed it to some of my friends, they thought it was a good book. So they suggested that I publish it. And then the easiest way to publish it is by self-publishing because, like you just said, the local publishers they are more their market is more towards my first language, Bahasa Malaysia.
Sure.
So
And that makes perfect sense.
Malaysia is like 30 million people. The English speaking, those who
Bigger than I
really like
thought.
to read, just in Kuala Lumpur, maybe or Penang. So there's probably like 5, 6 million, maybe 10, maybe 6, 7 million people who are into reading English language books.
Right.
So yes, you're right. It's quite limited. But when I start publishing, I wasn't thinking so much into whether my market would be in America or in Europe or in Australia. It's more of like I'll just put it out in the world and see whether it works or
And see,
whether people will like it and hoping that people will like it. It's not so much a profit thing for me in the beginning.
no,
But once
well,
I started publishing, I thought maybe I would like more people to read my book. So
yeah.
that's where I got stuck with the marketing part because I'm not a marketing guy. So
Okay.
it's
So
very it's a huge hill to climb. Yeah,
you have a marketing background though, right?
I
So,
don't. I'm in finance.
oh my God.
I don't have marketing. I'm in finance.
Oh, I'm fine. Okay. So I'm
Should
sorry. I
be.
misunderstood. But I mean, well, you're still further ahead than I am. I'm a guy. I couldn't run a bookstore for 2 years without going and running it into the ground. So I know nothing about money. But it's in terms of what you're doing. Like, is there any impediment? Like being in Malaysia, has that really caused you any issues? Like, does Amazon give you a hard time about putting your books out anywhere else, or is it pretty smooth?
When it comes to publishing, self-publishing Amazon, it was kind of straightforward and direct. I get it. I got it published quite quickly because I read on Reddit. Some people they got into a lot of obstacles to actually even publish on Amazon. But I got it through that. I breezed through it. It got published pretty fast. There's no
That's
problem.
good.
But when it came to, but then I found out that Malaysians couldn't buy from Amazon. You know,
This is what I'm
you
talking
can't
about.
buy the ebooks on Amazon. So I emailed them and they say, "Oh, we're trying to let's try to figure this out." Yeah. They never came back, and I said, my Malaysian readers, my Malaysians couldn't actually buy ebooks on Amazon. They couldn't ask me. There's no access. Uh, there's no Amazon access for Malaysian readers. That's
That's
the biggest obstacle for me. You can buy paperback from Amazon US or from Amazon North America, but the shipping cost is very cost prohibitive. It's like double. It's like if it's like
no doubt.
fifty
No doubt.
dollars, that's gonna be like $30, $40. So if you were to convert it into Malaysian ringgit, that would be like 80, 90 ringgit. But that's quite prohibitive for a lot of people to buy paperback.
Oh,
That's the way. That's the only way where they can buy it. So the only alternative is to other platforms like Kobo. I don't know if you've heard of Kobo or Google.
yeah, you have it
It's,
on a bunch of
that's right.
platforms. I remember because
That's right.
I remember when I was looking to buy your book and I opened up all that. I hadn't heard of half of them. Okay, I didn't know what half of them were. I was like, "What are these? I don't even know what these are." I'm an Amazon guy. Not because I think Amazon is so great, just because it's simple. I
Right.
use it because it's simple and I don't have to think about it. I make one file that goes up as a paperback. I make another slightly different file that goes up as a Kindle, and I make two variations of the same cover, and I'm done. And that's it.
Right.
And I don't have to, I use the same blurb. I use the same keywords. It's just a recycled thing to make a paperback and then make a Kindle.
Right.
What you're doing is different. You've got, and I admire it, and we're going to talk about it because I need help. I want to do more of this because I keep seeing that there's other places where other than Amazon where I could be publishing my books and people could buy them. Maybe not in the same quantities, but I don't care.
Right.
I'll put the time in. If it means I buy or sell one a year, that's still one a year, right? That's still a book that I sold, and that's the important
That's
part.
right.
Now, we're just running up on 25 minutes, and I'm going to put all your links, all that we've just been talking about,
Thanks so much.
down below. We're going to get, but you've been on Substack for a while, but you've been having you haven't really done too much with it because I know we met on Reddit and I Reddit and I don't get along very well. I'm having some, I
You have a
found
love-hate relationship with it?
February, and I Reddit is still there, but I don't use it very much.
Right.
But we're going to try to get you some traction here on Substack, because what I found, quite honestly, is that this space is a very supportive author community. So when you run into something that you're trying to maybe work with a new publishing house or whatever, there's probably somebody who's already done it. There's probably somebody here who's already run into it, and maybe you can answer some questions for some other folks who've never done what you're doing. So for me, Substack has become sort of that comfortable place where I can, and I mean, I can't imagine doing what we're doing right now on Reddit. I would never, there's no way in a million years I would want to do a video on Reddit, just because it doesn't feel comfortable there to do that.
Right.
This is
people there,
this, and I mean, Substack never changed, never added downvote option. Please don't ever do that. But yeah, it's generally very, very positive, and all the small developed, the small number of subscribers that are looking at this through and meeting you through me for the first time. Yeah. Subscribe to Jose. Check out the book. I mean, it's worth honestly, it's worth the small amount of money to buy a Kindle copy or a Kobo copy or whatever copy. You're going to love it. I promise. You're going to love it. And you're going to love it for 3 different reasons, maybe more. And we're going to do this again, because is there another
kind, man? Be too kind.
Is there another book in you? That's the next question. Is there another book in you? And if so, do you follow up with another? I mean, 30-Day Man, I can't see a sequel to that. I don't see that.
No, there won't be a sequel. Like I mentioned earlier, sci-fi is not a thing that is front and center for me. It's more of like a background or a setting. And the themes that I always love exploring is, like I mentioned, themes of identity, of existentialism, duty, and alienation. I actually completed a manuscript, but it has nothing to do with sci-fi. But it continues the same theme of the 30-Day Man. It doesn't sci-fi at all. But I'm not sure whether I'm comfortable publishing it at the moment. I need to refine it further. I need to consider whether or not it's worth publishing, or maybe it's just for my own personal reading, shared among my close circle. That manuscript has been completed. It's in the final stage, but I'm still thinking maybe or maybe not. But at the same time, I've already started a new book, a new manuscript, and this is something that I would like to be published. It's not sci-fi, like I mentioned to you, but continues the same theme. It is a historical fiction. It's a historical fiction that's about this an empire, a Malayan empire, an empire that was established in my country like 500 years ago.
Okay.
So it's the setting is in the 1500s, and the setup or the setting is a few weeks or months prior to an invasion by the Portuguese. For those who read Southeast Asian history, they'll be familiar with it. So there's this emporium, what we call it, an entrepot. It's not exactly an empire, but it's an entrepot. It's an emporium where people trade. It's in the Straits of Malacca.
Okay.
Where people trade in the 1500s. It was a very famous port. It was invaded by the Portuguese in the 1500s. So my thinking of the book is more of the layman, the man on the streets view on what's happening. It's not so much on the main players. It's not so much on the kings or from the main players on what's happening on the strategy. It's more of like what's happening to the little people, or what are the little people thinking prior to the war, prior to the invasion, during the invasion, after the invasion, from the views of the little people. So that's
I love it. And like to publish. I'll tell you right now, both those things you talked about are very Substack friendly. The one that you're not sure about publishing, if I may respectfully suggest, take chapter 1, read through it till you're relatively happy with it, throw it on Substack, see what happens. That kind of thing. Substack is very good to, and they will tell you. I mean, kindly for the most part, Substack be nice. They will tell you what's good about it. They may not always tell you what's bad about it, because a lot of it's almost like a whole lot of Canadians sometimes. It's very polite. But there's still if you ask for the critique, they will give it to you. But the thing is, like, nobody's going to slam you for doing this. This is the difference between here and virtually any other social media place out there. We're here for this exact reason. This is why we're here. We all want to share each other's work. And when you do, even if it's, I've met people here that's the very first thing they've ever written, and they're putting it up and they're freaking out because they've never done this before. But Substack is kind to that. Substack loves that. So if you're an established writer like yourself, where you have some skills already and you're already sort of trying to decide if this is a good one or maybe I need to fix this, great place to experiment. Great place to just, you don't put the whole book out, but you can give them a little taste. They'll tell you what they like, what they don't like. It's fun. Your other book sounds great. I love the little people perspective. I think that's fantastic. I actually have something I'm going to do for my paid tier that has an awful lot to do with the concept, nothing to do with your book at all, because it's not saying remotely, but the idea of the little person is kind of part of it. So for all you out there who are considering a paid tier thing, there's going to be something fun coming for that. I'm going to do something fun with that. But yeah, for now, I think we're going to wrap it up. It's been about a half hour, Jose. It's been a great half hour. I had so much fun. I'm so happy to meet you finally.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for being my supporter.
Oh, my pleasure, my friend. It's been wonderful. I'm going to be reading The 30-Day Man again on my porch, and I will report back to Substack about that. But when you're ready to do something, whether it's the first book you talked about or it's the Malaysian Empire one you're talking, it doesn't matter. We're going to do this again. I try to bring everybody. I want to bring everybody back at some point, and we'll get an update. We'll see what's up and we'll see what's new. I'm actually working on a podcast off of Substack, so there may be another opportunity there as well. We might be talking again.
Excellent. I look forward to that. Yeah.
Excellent. It's been a blast, Jose. I'm so glad to have met you. And Substack, everybody subscribe and like Jose because this stuff is amazing. All the links are going to be down below. And just so you know, Jose, it takes about 20 minutes after we shut down here before anything goes up anywhere. Substack does what Substack does. And I'll chat with you about that and I'll tell you what's going on. But for now, we're gonna wrap it up. And thank you so much for all your really interesting stuff about your book. And again, everybody, buy The 30-Day Man. You're gonna love it.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Good night, guys.